Summary of The Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan. Percy Jackson, who is 12 years old, tells the reader to stop reading if they see themselves in the next story. Being a demigod is hard, he says. His story starts with a trip to the Metropolitan Museum of Art with his class. Percy has ADHD and dyslexia, and he has already been thrown out of 6 schools. He tries hard to be good because he likes Mr. Brunner, his Latin teacher, but Mrs. Dodds, his math teacher, ruins everything. She brings Percy into the museum by himself and changes into a monster. Mr. Brunner shows up and throws a pen that turns into a sword to Percy. Percy uses the sword to kill Mrs. Dodds. Everything goes back to normal, but some of the other kids think that Mrs. Kerr is the math teacher. Grover, Percy's best friend, seems to be the only one who knows for sure that Mrs. Dodds was real, but he won't say so. Percy's marks drop, and at the end of the year, he is kicked out of school. The Greyhound bus that Percy and Grover are taking home breaks down as they are on it. Percy and Grover see 3 old women stitching and cutting thread at a roadside fruit stand. Grover is scared by this, so he asks Percy to walk him to his apartment. Percy gets rid of Grover, avoids Mom's awful husband, Smelly Gabe, and waits for Mom. Mom tells Gabe that she and Percy will spend the weekend in Montauk without him. Normal things happen at first on the trip, like talking about Percy's father, who left when Percy's mother was pregnant. But then a storm comes. Grover shows up, but his lower body is that of a goat, and he says that he is after them. Mom tries to drive Percy to a safe summer camp, but lightning hits the car and a minotaur attacks them. Percy and Mom try to get Grover, who is hurt, past a big pine tree, but the minotaur grabs Mom and she disappears. Percy kills the minotaur before he blacks out. When Percy wakes up, Grover takes him to meet Mr. D, who is in charge of the camp. Mr. D is with Mr. Brunner, but Mr. Brunner says that Mr. D is actually the horse Chiron and not Mr. D. Mr. D says that he is the god of wine, Dionysus. Chiron says that the Greek gods are real and that Mount Olympus is in New York City. Percy is shown around Camp Half-Blood by Chiron and a girl named Annabeth. All of the kids there are demigods, which means they have one godly parent and one human parent. Percy meets Luke, his guide, at the Hermes cabin. Later, Clarice, one of Ares's children, tries to put Percy's face in a toilet, but he makes the water shoot back into her face. Percy is shocked to find out that his dad is a Greek god, but his dad might never want him back. Percy will have to stay in the Hermes cell until his father shows up. Percy and Annabeth talk about what's going on. Since the winter solstice, the weather has seemed like the gods are fighting. Annabeth thinks that someone stole something, and she wants to go on a quest to find it so badly. Percy gets used to his routine at camp, but he keeps thinking that Mom might be locked up in the underworld. He also starts to understand why kids like Luke don't like the fact that their parents are forever. Several strange things happen. After dumping water on himself, Percy does a tricky sword move, and he is very good at paddling. One afternoon, Grover tells Percy that he still has to keep him safe. He also tells Percy why Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades don't have any kids at camp. After World War II, they promised not to have any more kids. 17 years ago, Zeus made a mistake and had a daughter named Talia. However, monsters killed her. Campers play capture the flag later. Percy has to keep watch over a stream. Clarice and the other Ares kids pick on Percy, but when he falls into the water, he feels strong. His team wins as he fights them. Right after that, a hellhound tries to kill Percy, and a trident appears above his head, which means that Poseidon is his father. The next morning, Percy gets a quest after having a dream about 2 guys fighting. Chiron tells Percy that Zeus and Poseidon are fighting because Zeus's lightning is missing, and Percy thinks that Percy took it. Percy talks to the oracle, which tells him that he will go west to face a god who has changed, that he will find and return what was stolen, that a friend will betray him, and that he will fail at what matters most. Chiron tells Percy that he has to go to Los Angeles and the Underworld to get the thunderbolt from Hades. This makes Percy happy because it means he can save Mom. Grover and Annabeth offer to go with them. Luke gives Percy a pair of shoes with wings before he leaves. Percy gives them to Grover because he can't fly because Zeus hates him. Percy gets a pen from Chiron that turns into a sword called Riptide. Annabeth tells Percy on the way to the bus that they can't be friends because Poseidon and Annabeth's mother, Athena, are enemies. The Furies attack the bus and want to know where it is. Percy, Annabeth, and Grover get away from the bus and walk until they get to Auntie M's Garden Gnome Emporium. Grover is sure he can smell monsters, but Annabeth and Percy can only smell burgers. The owner, Auntie M, is wearing a long dress and a hood that hides her face. She cooks for them. As Percy starts to get tired, Auntie M asks to take a picture of them. Percy agrees, but he learns that Auntie M is really Medusa because the statues in her yard are people who have been turned to stone. Medusa is killed by Percy, and her head is sent to Mount Olympus. That night, Grover tells Percy that he wants to be a searcher and spend his whole life looking for the god Pan. They talk about how the Furies are looking for an object, not Percy, but Percy doesn't care. He just wants to save his mother. Percy dreams of a voice in a horrible pit that tries to pull itself out by using Percy. They buy tickets for a train to Denver the next morning. Whenever Annabeth has a break in St. Louis, she insists on going to the Gateway Arch. Even though Percy thinks it's weird, he takes the lift to the top with a woman and her chihuahua. After Grover and Annabeth go back down, the woman changes into an echidna and the chihuahua changes into a chimera. Percy jumps off the statue into the Mississippi River, where he gets a message: he must go to Santa Monica Beach before going into the underworld, and he shouldn't trust the gifts. When the three people get to Denver, they have 7 days to finish their goal. They decide to send a word to Half-Blood Hill through Iris. Percy tells Luke about his dreams and how he worries that he's going in the wrong direction. Luke says that Hades stole the bolt and that it's strange that no one is changing into a pine tree. After this, the kids go to a diner, where a big biker walks in and offers to pay for their food. He is the god of war, Ares. In return for a ride to LA, he needs Percy to do him a favor and get his shield from a water park. Percy will only agree if Ares says he knows something about Mom. Percy is shocked to find out at the pool that Ares is dating Hephaestus's wife, Aphrodite, even though she is married to Hephaestus. Percy finds Ares' shield on a ride, but when he feels it, it looks like cameras on Mount Olympus are broadcasting live. Percy finds water and saves himself and his friend Annabeth. Even though he's angry that Ares tricked them, he takes Ares up on his offer of a backpack with food and clothes in it. Ares also tells them that Mom is still alive. Percy, Annabeth, and Grover get in a truck with 3 zoo animals that have been mistreated and are being moved. Luke told Percy about the pine tree, and Percy tells Grover and Annabeth about it. Grover was Talia's keeper, and Luke and Annabeth went with Grover and Talia to Camp Half-Blood. When monsters attacked, Talia gave her life as an offering, but Zeus turned her into the pine tree on top of Half-Blood Hill. After Grover goes to sleep, Percy asks if Athena and Poseidon will fight again like they did in the Trojan War. Annabeth says that she will fight with Percy no matter what. Percy dreams about the voice in the pit again, and this time he hears a second voice. The next day, Percy lets the animals go in Vegas, and the kids go to a hotel. They play games until Percy meets kids who have been charmed and stuck in the hotel for decades. When Percy drags Annabeth and Grover out, they find out that they only have 1 day to finish their quest and that Percy no longer remembers his dream. They take a cab to Los Angeles, where Percy wades into the water. Nereid, a sea spirit, gives Percy 3 pearls that he can break if he needs help. On their way to the recording studio in the Underworld, the 3 get caught by a man named Krusty, who is really the monster Procrustes. He bends or cuts people to make them fit on 6-foot-long beds. Mr. Sharon won't take Percy to the Underworld in the hallway, but he will if Percy promises to tell Hades to give Mr. Sharon a raise. Annabeth makes Cerberus, the 3-headed dog, play ball with them so they can get past him. Percy leads his friends right to Hades' kingdom, but Grover's shoes grow wings and carry him away, right toward the pit from Percy's dreams. They get away because Grover's shoes don't fit his feet well. They finally get to the house. Hades is angry about what Percy did, but Percy begs Hades not to start a war and asks for the bolt back. Hades says he doesn't want a war because he already has too many dead people. He says that his special item, the Helm of Darkness, is stolen. He thinks Percy has the hat and the bolt, so he calls up Mom and says he will kill her if Percy doesn't give him the items. Percy finds the bolt that Ares gave him in the backpack he got from him. Annabeth and Grover offer to take Mom's place in the Underworld, but Percy knows that Mom would never forgive him if he let them. He gives the pearls to his friends, and the three of them make their way through the ocean to safety. Ares tells Percy on the beach that he gave him the bolt because he wants a war and has the key. Percy tells Ares that he wants to fight him. He thinks he can win because he thinks the person in the pit is in charge of Ares. Percy hurts Ares, but the fight ends when a dark force moves through. At the scene, reporters and cops save Percy by raising money to fly him and Annabeth back to New York, while the Furies return Hades' helm to him. Percy visits the Empire State Building by himself. When he gets to the room where Poseidon rules, he bows to him. Percy thinks that Poseidon's response of being far away is the most honest one. Percy gives Zeus his thunderbolt back and tells him everything, including what he thinks is in the underworld pit. Zeus goes away. Poseidon says that Kronos, his and Zeus's father, lives in the pit and tries to tell Percy that Kronos is powerless. He tells Percy that his mother is now home. As Percy leaves, Poseidon says good things about him. Then, Percy sees his mom again. Gabe seems to be even meaner than before, and Percy figures out that he has been hitting Mom. Percy finds the box with Medusa's head in his bedroom. He tells his mother what's in the box, and when he goes back to camp, he feels like he belongs there. He says goodbye to Grover when Grover goes looking, and he is thrilled to hear that Mom sold her first sculpture, which was of a scared Gabe, and is using the money to pay for college. She says he can stay at home and go to school. Percy doesn't know what to do on the last morning of camp because he hasn't made up his mind yet. He agrees to go with Luke to look for monsters. Luke, on the other hand, tells them in the woods that he is working for Kronos and stole the bolt and the helm. He puts a scorpion from a pit on Percy. Percy beats the scorpion, and then he goes to the home. Chiron tells him that he can't help Luke or Kronos right now, but that Percy will be a great hero. When Annabeth says she wants to try living with her dad at home, Percy plans to go home for the year. Percy tells Poseidon that he will come back the following summer.
About the author. He was born in the city of San Antonio, Texas. As a child, he loved to write short stories. Despite this, he went to college first for music and then to become an English and history teacher. After graduating, Riordan taught English and history to middle school students for more than 10 years. He then wrote and published Big Red Tequila, an adult crime book that was the first in his Tres Navarre series. Even though the Tres Navarre series has been popular and won awards, Riordan is best known for the Percy Jackson and the Olympians series. The Lightning Thief started out as a bedtime story for Riordan's son, who had just been identified with ADHD and dyslexia. With his son's help, Riordan wrote The Lightning Thief over the next year. When a publisher liked it, Riordan agreed to write the next 4 books in the series. Riordan quit teaching in order to meet the dates for both series. He thinks that through his books, he can do more to get kids interested in reading, especially about mythology, than he could as a teacher.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.